This winter's been pretty brutal. It's been really slowing me down. I was hoping to be done about a month ago, but it's just constantly snowed, and last month has just been really, really wet and rainy, and it's just couldn't do anything for a long time. But I'm hoping now that the weather is going to change. It looks like it's getting better, it's starting to switch over. Can finally get everything up here and finish this off, finally do what I have to do and get it out of the way. At this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to shoot myself. So, I mean, I could basically be dead in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know. It's all up to chance at this point. So, I don't think anyone knows where I'm at, but if they put it together, who knows? At this point, I have to take that chance. So it's just going to be a point of, go as far as I can. I do have my escape, and that's death. I can always shoot myself, and I'm okay with that. So I'm getting to the point where just trying to live and pay bills and live as a civilian and go to work, that just freaks me out. It's actually more comfortable for me to think about living out here, robbing banks, pharmacies, just taking what I want for as long as I can. At least it'll be exciting. It won't be boring. And I don't have to worry about Lynette or Kayleen. And everything will be taken care of. It'll just be me. So.
The footage you see on the screen may be some of the most disturbing footage ever recorded, and also one that raises serious concerns. At first glance, the footage looks quite ordinary. A man is engaged in his hobby on weekends, keeping a popular YouTube blog, where he builds various structures and shelters in the forest. This is quite common and even harmless hobby, which attracts the attention of numerous viewers around the world. However, alarming, strange, and ambiguous phrases that periodically come off the lips of this man. It seems that behind the mask of a harmless hobby hides something much more sinister. It becomes clear that the true scale of the terrible plans of this mysterious character exceeds everything that can be assumed, based only on his usual conversations in front of the camera. This video is about Peter Keller, the 41-year-old head of a seemingly well-to-do family. Peter has a wife, Lynette, and 18-year-old daughter, Kellen, who at first glance give the impression of the most ordinary, happy people. But behind this facade of family well-being hides a chilling mystery. As it turned out that shortly before the graduation of his daughter from high school, Peter began to methodically keep video diaries, in which his wife and daughter, Kellen, also took an active part. The girl herself noted that these recordings unexpectedly helped her to open up, despite her usually reserved character of a teenager. While the head of the family worked as a computer repairman, his wife Lynette struggled with serious medical problems, which prevented her from working full-time. The woman made and sold paper flowers at local fairs to support the family budget. At first glance, it was just a family facing life's challenges, but trying to stick together and overcome adversity. Behind that facade, however, lurks something much more sinister. Let's get to the bottom of it. Careful analysis of the available data from the investigation leads to a shocking discovery. Peter Keller turned out to be a talented, self-taught engineer who himself built an impressive underground structure in the woods called Camp Keller. It was a carefully camouflaged bunker equipped with everything necessary for autonomous living. The man claimed that he had dreamed of a home underground since childhood and eventually managed to realize this long-held dream of his. But what else do we know about Peter that led him to this point? Peter Keller was born on February 5, 1967, to a seemingly ordinary family. He grew up in the small town of North Bend and spent much of his early life surrounded by the lush green forests and serene landscapes of the Pacific Northwest. Friends and acquaintances described him as a closed and introverted man who showed no signs of the darkness that would eventually consume him. However, there was a sinister undercurrent growing beneath the surface that would eventually lead to shocking violence. Over the years, Peter Keller's behavior began to change. Friends and family noticed that he retreated from social activities and became increasingly immersed in end-of-the-world scenarios and paranoid ideas. His obsession with doomsday preparations took a dark turn, culminating in an underground bunker that would eventually become the scene of a horrific crime. Peter openly expressed his consuming fear of the impending apocalypse, a fear that ultimately drove him to do terrible things. He made no secret of the fact that he didn't know what would happen next and that he could be caught at any moment. Peter talked about the possibility of his death in 2 or 3 weeks, realizing that everything depended on chance. He didn't think anyone knew where he was, but he also didn't rule out that he could be found. Peter was frank about his plan to just try to live, paying his bills and pretending to be a normal citizen. But at the same time, he was more comfortable with the thought of robbing banks, drugstores, and taking whatever he wanted, enjoying this exciting and not boring lifestyle without worrying about laws and responsibilities. His frank confessions indicated that he had a serious depressive disorder. It was obvious that Peter had been thinking a lot about suicide, and his thoughts were causing him great anxiety. Perhaps his cryptic statements hinted that his fantasies had a much darker aspect to them than he himself had indicated. Peter's comments about wanting to live 10 years in the woods only served to complicate an already troubling situation. He was saying that he was 40 years old and running out of time, and he didn't even question it. Peter admitted that everything made so much sense to him now, and he didn't feel bad about it, just accepting what was happening. These statements from Peter did support the theory that he was suffering from a major depressive disorder. His reflections that he felt depressed were also indicative of this.
Just couldn't do anything for a long time, but I'm hoping now that the weather's going to change. It looks like it's getting better. It's starting to switch over. Can finally get everything up here and finish this off, finally do what I have to do and get it out of the way. At this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to shoot myself. So, I mean, I could basically be dead in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know. It's all up to chance at this point. So, I don't think anyone knows where I'm at. But if they put it together, who knows? At this point, I have to take that chance. So, it's just going to be a point of, go as far as I can. I do have my escape, and that's death. I can always shoot myself, and I'm okay with that. So I'm getting to the point where just trying to live and pay bills and live as a civilian and go to work, it just freaks me out. It's actually more comfortable for me to think about living out here, robbing banks, pharmacies, just taking what I want for as long as I can. At least it'll be exciting. It won't be boring. And I don't have to worry about Lynette or Kayleen. And everything will be taken care of. It'll just be me. So today we got probably about a 55-pound pack. Today we're hauling up a 55-pound pack, basically a big bottle full of beans that's about 45 pounds, and some wine making stuff, and then just the weight of the gun in the pack. So a little lighter than what I have been doing. Doing pretty good. Really got a lot of stuff up. I mean, basically I can last months up here without ever leaving. I've got propane, gasoline, food, soap, all supplies. So really set right now. This winter has been, just to show just how brutal it was. Well, we had a big ice storm. This is one of the trees that's fallen down over the trail. Kind of another one over there. Just a lot of damage. Branches down everywhere. makes it a little more difficult to get through, but I don't want to move it. I'd like to keep it as hard to get through here so nobody will come out here. Well, before, a while ago, I used to sit here and think, this whole thing is just crazy at times, and then I'd think about it and it would make sense, and it's like, okay, this is what I got to do. But now, I guess with time, I just think that way all the time, that this is what I got to do. I don't even question it anymore. It just seems like everything makes so much sense now. Just the more I've thought about it, the more I understand it. I don't really feel bad about it. It's just the way it is.
A haze was enveloping the trees of the Pacific Northwest when Elizabeth and Sarah Keller died in the early hours of April 22, 2012. Peter Keller, husband and father of the family, methodically massacred them with his gun within the walls of their own home. The brutality of these murders shocked everyone who knew the family. Peter was considered a good-natured, quiet man working as an accountant. What happened that could have driven him to such a terrible crime? After committing the double murder, Peter quickly fled into the dense woods surrounding the house. Shortly thereafter, a fire broke out in the house, although its cause remained unclear. Arriving firefighters, acting at the risk of their own lives, rushed inside, but found no trace of Peter. It was obvious that he had skillfully hidden in the impenetrable forest, evading initial attempts to catch him. The authorities immediately launched a large-scale search, throwing all possible resources into it. But Peter seemed to disappear into the dark spruce forests and hollows. The investigation reached a dead end until Peter's car was found abandoned in the city center. The keys were left inside, and co-workers at work reported that he had left and might not be back. Detectives also discovered that Peter had withdrawn $6,000 from an account shortly before. All indications were that Peter had either fled to save his life or was in mortal danger himself. A search of the Kellers' home brought luck to the police. They found a hard drive containing Peter's video diaries. These recordings became a key piece of evidence in the case. A former sergeant who had previously investigated similar disappearances shared his unconventional approach to finding Peter. Detectives studied photos taken by Keller during the construction of the secret shelter. The images helped narrow the search to an area within 10 miles of certain landmarks. Matching this information to Peter's usual parking spot for the car, police began combing the area. 6 days of intense searching through the dense woods, but Keller's hideout was never found. Peter Keller seemed to disappear into the fog of the northwestern wilderness.
Well, this is the end of the day. I'm getting wrapped up, getting ready to leave. I don't know if you can see me, but kind of one last look at everything. That's my fireplace, wood stove, whatever. Pretty dark. Now we're going upstairs. This is where most of my supplies are. Pretty well stocked up. My window. Looking down on the wood stove. And that pretty much wraps it up for the day. So I've been up here about 7 hours. That includes hike time and work time. pretty exhausting, a lot of work, a lot of hard work. So it'll take me about an hour to get back. Use up what little energy I have left. And then I get to start the 2-day recovery process.
A thorough search in the impenetrable forests of the Northwest finally yielded results. The observers noticed smoke rising from the trees in the distance. Could this be Peter Keller's hideout? Detectives moved cautiously in that direction, fearing that Peter might have taken hostages. Surveillance footage found in the house pointed to that possibility. As the police got closer, they found a makeshift chimney releasing smoke from underground, so they were on the right track. But what awaited them inside? The SWAT team tried to contact Peter, but there was no answer. Suddenly, there was the sound of gunshots. Perhaps the hostages were trying to free themselves. There was no way to risk their lives. The SWAT fighters threw a tear grenade inside, hoping to force those who were hiding to come out. But after that, there was silence. There was no time to delay. When the assault team burst into the hideout, they found a horrific sight. Peter Keller was lying on the floor with a gunshot wound to the head. He had killed himself. Apparently, Peter never waited for help and decided to end his life. He may have planned it from the beginning, trying to realize his youthful dream of living in a forest bunker. The tragic ending of Peter Keller's story was a terrible reminder of how destructive the dark side of the human psyche can become, hidden behind the outer shell of everyday life. This sad story should encourage society to pay more attention to mental health issues and the importance of supporting each other in times of need to prevent such terrible consequences in the future. In the quiet Oregon countryside, amidst picturesque hills and winding country roads, surrounded by centuries-old pines and oaks, stood a time-worn farm. It was the property of Susan Monica, a person of mystery and aloofness. Few of the locals suspected what horrors lurked behind the peeling walls of the farm buildings. It wasn't until 2014 that the sinister mystery of the place was dispelled like a thick fog. While searching the farm, investigators discovered the partial remains of two missing men, Robert Haney and Stephen Delcino. This find was the first drop in a whole waterfall of shocking discoveries that followed. As this macabre case unfolded, a truly horrifying story came before the astonished eyes of the public. A story of murder, dismemberment of bodies, and how for years Susan Monica herself wallowed in lies to cover up her heinous deeds. "You value pigs more than you value people," the judge would later say when sentencing her. And those words, hitting with the force of a guilty verdict, reflected the very essence of the coming story of the nightmare that had been going on for years in this seemingly peaceful farming community. To fully understand the origins of what is happening, it is necessary to look back at the history of Susan Monica herself. This person was shrouded in mystery, which was partly responsible for the tragic events. Monica was born on July 8, 1948 in California, then still under the name of Stephen Buchanan. About her early years of information is practically not preserved. It is known only that the young Stephen decided to link his fate with the Navy, and during the Vietnam War was in the epicenter of hostilities, receiving several prestigious awards for bravery and courage. After returning from the armed forces, Buchanan underwent a course of radical transformation. He decided to completely change sex and live the rest of his life as a woman named Susan Monica. The reasons for such a radical decision is not known. Perhaps they were rooted in childhood traumas and psychological disorders of the heroine of our story. According to some reports, after the sex change operation, Susan for some time worked as an engineer in one of the major companies. However, the routine of civilized life clearly did not suit her rebellious nature. In 1991, Monica made a fateful decision. She completely broke with urban society and purchased a 20-acre plot of land in the remote rural town of Weimar in Oregon. On this vast tract of land, she developed an entire farming empire. Goats, chickens, pigs, and other wildlife grazed on her land. Monica personally erected several outbuildings, including a spacious barn for livestock and a blacksmith shop for wrought iron work. It was then that she started her own company, White Queen Construction, specializing in original handcrafted fences and hedges. In the expansive home built on the edge of the farm, Monica lived all alone. Apparently, she shunned human society, avoiding social contact. The only creatures that brightened her reclusiveness were her pets: numerous cats, dogs, and of course piglets, which Monica adored almost more than anything else in the world. It is in relation to these pink-cheeked inhabitants of the stable, her affection over time grew into something much deeper and perverse than simple human affection. Subsequently, the investigation of the murders will reveal to the world this morbid passion of Monica's, a passion that motivated her to go to the most monstrous and nightmarish acts. Loneliness on the farm had never been a problem for Monica. She hardly needed human companionship. However, to keep the farm functioning, she periodically needed helpers for small jobs and auxiliary tasks. So in the fall of 2013, she was joined as a handyman by Robert Haney, a middle-aged man largely disillusioned with the modern world and dreaming of finding a quiet haven away from the hustle and bustle of life. For Haney, this job at Monica's farm seemed like the perfect opportunity to fulfill his dream of living a simple, measured life in nature, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. As a reward, he was promised a small salary and the opportunity to live right on the farm in a specially equipped trailer. For the first few months, everything went smoothly. Haney, with his usual diligence, performed a variety of work, from repair work to maintenance of farm machinery and animal care. Absorbed in his new job, he enjoyed the peace and quiet of the land. Monica, on the other hand, had little contact with her new employee, preferring to socialize only when necessary and spending most of her time alone. By December 2013, however, it became apparent to Haney's relatives that something was going on with their loved one. For more than 2 months, they had not heard from him. Phone calls went unanswered. Letters were never answered. It was very unlike Robert, who used to keep in touch with his family. The first to sound the alarm were Haney's children, Jesse and Ashley. More and more often in their family circle began to sound alarming talk about possible reasons for such a long silence. There were all sorts of speculations, from an accident to Robert's going into seclusion for religious reasons. But none of these speculations seemed convincing. Eventually, the family couldn't bear the oppressive anxiety over their father's fate and decided to act. On January 1st, 2014, Jesse and Ashley went straight to Susan Monica's farm with the firm intention of finding out what had happened to Robert. Already upon their arrival, they were overcome with a bad feeling. The farm, once a well-maintained area, now gave a depressing impression of abandonment. There were piles of garbage, broken boards, and rusty scrap metal everywhere. The air was saturated with a disgusting mixture of the odors of droppings, rot, and something indefinable, but unaccountably frightening. Jesse and Ashley literally winced with revulsion with every step they took through this apocalyptic landscape. Finally, they reached Robert's trailer, but instead of their father, they were greeted only by his faithful dog Bobby and his personal belongings, still lying in their usual places. His leather jacket, all the tools he'd taken with him. It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, Jesse later recalled in an interview with crime reporters. Monica herself behaved extremely aloof and indifferent when the Haney children tried to ask her about Robert's whereabouts. She limited herself to a dry statement that he had allegedly quit his job and left the farm months ago. The woman steadfastly refused to elaborate on the details. Such vague explanations only increased the suspicions of the Haney family. They immediately went to the police, filing a missing persons report for their father. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office, which had jurisdiction over the area, immediately began operational efforts to locate Robert Haney. The massive investigation that unfolded at Monica's farm could have been avoided if the owner herself had not tried to confuse the investigation with her contradictory testimony at the very beginning. But in reality, the unfortunate woman only added fuel to the fire of suspicion that engulfed her. The initial version that she put forward to the investigators, more like a cheap trick than a plausible explanation. According to her story, one fall day in 2013, she was allegedly on her way to the piggery when her attention was drawn to the noisy quacking of birds scurrying restlessly in the far corner of the paddock. As she approached, Monica was startled to discover the cause of their confusion. It was none other than Robert Haney, lying surrounded by pigs frantically devouring something pink and shapeless. But what was most frightening was that, upon closer inspection, Monica recognized the tortured creature as a living human being. Haney was still alive, but his entrails had been disemboweled by the clucking animals. Monica testified that at that moment she was allegedly horrified by the gruesome scene, and taking pity on the doomed victim, shot Haney at point-blank range to end his torment. She explained the murderous shot by the fact that she was accustomed to put to sleep in this way hopelessly wounded pets. And at that fatal moment, her hand did not tremble to shoot a man dying of terrible wounds in the same manner. Subsequently, according to her story, she was elementary confused, not knowing what to do with the body, so she never did anything. Haney's remains were simply left lying where they were eaten by pigs, stray animals not attracted by human conventions. For the first few minutes after this bloody confession, there was a deafening silence in the interrogation room. The Jackson County investigators looked around with unspeakable amazement on their faces. None of them had ever encountered a story so gruesome and bizarre. Detective Eric Henderson, who was leading the investigation, was the first to break the sepulchral silence. He tried to gently clarify some of the illogical points in the testimony of Monica, but she only shrugged her shoulders indifferently, saying that she did what common sense told her in that monstrous situation. But Detective Henderson's experienced detective's instincts, ingrained in him from childhood, told him that there were major flaws and omissions in the story, behind which lay something more sinister. He felt that Monica was far from having fully exposed her secrets to justice. Indeed, the events of the next few days exceeded Henderson's wildest expectations. The operatives who arrived to search the farm discovered a scene so staggering and nightmarish that it made even the most experienced officers of the law shudder with revulsion. The entire vast territory of the farm was in a state of extreme desolation. Huge piles of garbage, debris, and manure piled up everywhere, emitting a mixture of unbearable odors of decay and rot. This had once been a well-maintained and tidy farmstead. But the most horrible discovery, of course, was a severed human leg found in a far corner of the barn. This discovery became the last straw in the cup of doubts of the investigation. Soon at the interrogation, Monica herself confessed to the murder and dismemberment of the second person. This time, the heartbreaking details of the gruesome atrocity shocked everyone present in the interrogation room. According to Monica's new testimony, her second victim was one Stephen Delcino, a 59-year-old handyman whom the woman hired in 2012 for various household needs. Monica's further account finally buried her former image of a harmless and reckless farmer. In it, she appeared before the court of inquiry in the guise of a cold-blooded killer who has contaminated her hands with blood not for the first time. According to her, in August 2012, a sudden scuffle broke out between her and Delcino over a mundane domestic quarrel. The fight erupted over two guns that belonged to Monica, which she allegedly found in her employees' belongings. Monica attempted to seize the misappropriated weapons, and a life-and-death struggle ensued. In the heat of the battle, a fatal shot rang out. As it turned out, Monica grabbed one of Delcino's guns and accidentally pulled the trigger. The bullet hit him exactly in the back of the head, which was a fatal blow for him. After the murder, Monica, with her usual cold-bloodedness, simply dismembered the corpse and buried the remains in different parts of the farm. The murderer did not stop at this horrifying confession. In the presence of stunned from such revelations of the investigators, she ruthlessly pointed out with a pencil on the farm Weimer, where exactly were buried the remains of the unfortunate Delcino. And this was only the beginning of a whole chain of such ominous indications. Like a raging giant, the thirst for blood and death overwhelmed Susan Monica's mind. As if breaking the shackles of years of silence, she bombarded the investigation of a flood of confessions capable of shocking any, even seen the species of man. As it turned out, the heinous murders of Robert Haney and Stephen Delcino were only the tip of the iceberg of criminal activity of this hellspawn. When Detective Henderson bluntly asked Monica if there were other burials on her farm, she responded with a phrase like a thunderclap. "If I tell you about 17 others, you'll put me in jail for the rest of my days." This almost condescending sneer paralyzed the stunned interrogators. In that second, they realized with their own eyes what a monstrous and cold nature they were dealing with. Until a few minutes ago, the seeming account of the murders of Haney and Delcino had been seen as a rare case of brutality and insanity in a fit of passion. Now, however, it appeared that behind it all lay a completely different story. the story of a string of premeditated murders that only a hardened serial killer could commit. And the further course of the interrogation finally dispelled the last crumbs of doubt in the belonging of Monica to this most dangerous and repulsive category of criminals. In a matter of minutes, her testimony has acquired a mass of new disgusting details, until then unseen even in the practice of scene kinds of detectives. Monica began to naturally juggle different versions of the murder she had already described, finally becoming entangled in her own contradictions. Then she claimed that she shot Delsino out of self-defense, then suddenly stated that he allegedly shot himself several times in the head. Then she claimed that she shot Delsino in self-defense. Then suddenly she claimed that he allegedly shot himself several times in the head. And even began to improvise on the fly, putting forward completely new bizarre scenarios of his death. Just as chaotically changed versions and regarding the tragedy with Robert Haney. At first, Monica insisted on her story about how the pigs were torturing the unfortunate man alive, and she allegedly tried to stop his torture with a gunshot. Later, however, she suddenly remarked that she could not confirm with certainty whether Haney was still alive at the time of the shooting. Apparently, the suicide bomber had woven a web of lies out of the smallest scraps of truth, protecting herself and justifying her heinous atrocities with far-fetched stories. Moreover, she obviously deliberately confused the investigation in order to confuse the operatives in her own, only known to her secrets. The apogee of this bacchanalia of delirium was the moment when Monica suddenly jumped to her feet and announced in full voice, "If you want, I can demonstrate exactly how I killed Delsino for 10 seconds." And before the dumbfounded detectives blinked an eye, she had already taken the pen at the ready and with a manic gleam in her eyes began to play a whole pantomime, depicting the process of shooting her victim. The guards could only watch this gruesome scene helplessly, having completely lost the thread of rational explanation for what was happening. Here before them sat not a human being, but a real devil of hell, for whom murder was not a crime, but almost an art. It was at that moment that the investigators were finally convinced. Susan Monica is not just a cold-blooded killer, but probably a whole serial killer, masterfully juggling false stories to cover up their atrocities. How many more innocent lives could be on her conscience? Of course, after all these monstrous revelations, Susan Monica's fate was sealed. In the jury trial, the prosecutor's office launched an entire campaign to expose the perverted personality and malicious motives of the defendant. The prosecutors used all available video and audio recordings of interrogations where Monica herself exposed herself as a ruthless monster who mocked human life. In one such recording in particular, she reasoned in a cynical tone, "I don't place much value on human lives. The only thing wrong with this planet is that there are humans on it. If it weren't for us, all the other animals, like the extinct dodos, would still exist." In contrast to this chilling confession from a cold-blooded killer, prosecutors presented hard evidence, forensic examinations of the victim's remains, which showed that Delsino had suffered 3 to 4 gunshot wounds to the head and that Haney's legs had been chopped with an axe before being nibbled by animals. On top of this gruesome mosaic was a videotape from Monica's jail cell showing her receiving a card from her cellmate with the heartbreaking caption, "From the sweetest killer in Jackson County." It is quite obvious that after such a murderous evidence base for the defense, Monica's attorneys could only desperately try to keep her alive by admitting the very guilt of the defendant. In the last word, they timidly mentioned some possible mental trauma, allegedly experienced by Monica in childhood, which could be the cause of her moral degeneration and loss of value of human life. However, these half-hearted motions did not have the expected effect. On April 21, 2015, just an hour after entering the deliberation room, the jury returned with a guilty verdict on all counts: 2 murders, abuse of bodies, and identity fraud. In handing down the final verdict, Judge Tim Barnack harshly chided Monica for her heinous acts, ridiculing the very attempt to portray her insanity as the result of psychological trauma. "I don't know how else to put it any other way, Miss Monica. You valued your pigs far more than you valued your people. You may sound cruel, but you are a cold-blooded killer." By court order, Susan Monica was sentenced to 2 consecutive 25-year sentences for a combined total of 50 years behind bars. For the 67-year-old woman, that effectively meant life in prison without parole until she was very old. To this day, many troubling questions still hover around the Susan Monica farm. Investigators noted that the remains of Haney and Delcino were scattered around the property in plastic bags. Such organized dismemberment hints that their deaths were not spontaneous outbursts of violence. In addition, Monica's claim of a possible 17 other victims on her land was never refuted. After her conviction, no further search for additional victims seems to have been conducted. The story of the Susan Monica farm murders illustrates how evil can take root when sheltered from view. Her ability to kill and dismember 2 and possibly more people shows the frightening depths of human cruelty. However, there are teachable moments in this story. The perseverance of the Haney family brought attention to the case and secured justice for their relative. And the painstaking work of the investigators to expose Monica's lies and entanglements ultimately led to a just conviction. The murders on Susan Monica's farm will likely haunt rural Oregon communities for years to come. But the determination of those who faced that darkness and brought it to light remains inspiring. The tragic events on the secluded farm were a frightening reminder of how deeply evil can penetrate when hidden from the public eye. However, the story also shows that through perseverance and principles, justice was eventually served to the innocent victims. These horrific crimes shocked people with their inhumanity. But the response of society and law enforcement demonstrated that even the darkest atrocity cannot escape retribution. Let this story serve as a warning of the harmful effects of alienation and cruelty, but also as a testament that good will ultimately triumph over all darkness. In the realm of familial dynamics, the influence of a wise mother-in-law can rekindle the dwindling embers of familial warmth, while the folly of an imprudent one holds the potential to extinguish even the most fervent flames of affection. Such is the wisdom imparted by tradition. Alexandra's abode nestled in the outskirts of Vancouver, Canada, a haven they sought after migrating from Yugoslavia. Her upbringing followed the trajectory of normalcy, evolving from a spirited child into a strikingly tall, astute, and alluring young woman, capable of ensnaring hearts with ease. It came as no surprise when she ventured into the realm of beauty pageantry, gracing the stage of Miss Canada in 1985. Amidst a sea of contenders, Alexandra stood out, her charisma drawing companionship effortlessly, even garnering the admiration of high-ranking officials. Yet her allure extended beyond mere physicality. Her amiable demeanor and wit wove a captivating spell around those in her orbit. Employed as a dental assistant, Alexandra treaded a path not of her passion but one supported by her parents, who deemed it a bastion of financial security. Despite this, her bond with her mother remained unyielding, a testament to their unwavering connection manifested through shared outings, daily conversations, and weekend rendezvous at local events. It was amidst one such gathering that fate intervened, the strains of their native tongue catching their ears. In the foreign expanse of their new home, encountering fellow countrymen sparked an immediate kinship, prompting the mother and daughter duo to engage in conversation with the newfound acquaintances. In a narrative reminiscent of a classic detective tale, the story unfolded with the mysterious introduction of 2 individuals who identified themselves only as the enigmatic P6. Sam and Jelka, as they were later revealed to be, emerged from the shadows of anonymity, their past shrouded in the mists of migration from Yugoslavia to the Canadian shores. Their connection to Alexandra, it seemed, was more than happenstance. Jelka shared a closeness in age with Alexandra's mother, and this commonality bridged the gap between strangers, instantly forging a bond. As they delved into conversations steeped in nostalgia for their homeland, the wheels of fate turned with Alexandra's mention of car troubles. Serendipity struck when it was unveiled that the elusive P6 owned an auto repair establishment. With insistence akin to a seasoned sleuth, they urged Alexandra to entrust her vehicle to their care, assuring her of top-notch service at fair rates. The location of the shop was disclosed, accompanied by a recommendation to seek out Joe, the proficient son of the P6 duo. Joe, a 27-year-old with the allure of a classic leading man, found himself captivated by Alexandra's charm, his heart echoing with hopes that her son would reciprocate similar sentiments towards his own daughter. The stage was set, and when Alexandra arrived at the repair shop, the entrance of the dashing Joe signaled the commencement of a romance worthy of a noir novel. Their courtship unfolded like a well-crafted plot, with romantic dinners at the city's finest eateries and exhilarating rides on Joe's motorcycle. Their connection deepened swiftly, akin to a tale spun by fate itself. Both families embraced the union, delighted by the harmonious blend of cultures and values that Alexandra and Joe shared. However, what initially appeared as a harmonious narrative soon took a dark turn. Alexandra's elation over Joe's proposal was marred by the looming shadow of Jelka, whose overbearing presence threatened to unravel their happiness. With a tenacity bordering on obsession, Jelka sought to assert her dominance in the wedding preparations, disregarding Alexandra's wishes and imposing her own vision upon the proceedings. A clash of wills ensued between the bride-to-be and her prospective mother-in-law, each steadfast in their convictions regarding every aspect of the ceremony. From floral arrangements to menu selections, their disagreements echoed like the discordant notes of a somber melody. Jelka's unwavering confidence in her own opinions clashed with Alexandra's desire for autonomy, casting a pall over what was meant to be a joyous occasion. In this intricate web of familial drama, where love and tension intertwined like threads in a complex tapestry, the outcome remained uncertain. Would Alexandra and Joe's love withstand the trials imposed by external forces? Or would their once promising future be shattered by the weight of familial discord? Only time would unveil the truth behind this tale of love, ambition, and the tangled webs of family ties. In the tangled web of familial relations, the role of the future mother-in-law loomed large, her insistence on asserting authority in the wedding arrangements sowing seeds of discord within the familial fold. Alexandra, envisioning her nuptials through a lens divergent from that of her prospective mother-in-law, found herself embroiled in a conflict of visions, exacerbated by Joe's conspicuous silence in the face of his mother's meddling. Though Joe observed Jelka's overbearing conduct with a discerning eye, his reluctance to confront her only served to compound Alexandra's distress. Desiring peace above all else, she beseeched Joe for support, trusting his assurance that he would intercede on her behalf. Yet despite his promises, Jelka's interference persisted unabated, casting doubt upon the viability of their union in Alexandra's mind. Amidst the tumult of familial strife, Alexandra's parents emerged as beacons of solace, offering reassurance in an otherwise turbulent sea. Their conjecture that Jelka's behavior stemmed from an excess of maternal zeal provided a semblance of comfort to Alexandra, prompting her to re-engage in the wedding preparations with renewed determination. On the auspicious day of June 11, 1988, Joe and Alexandra embarked on the journey of matrimony, their union symbolizing the convergence of two families. Yet the veneer of familial harmony proved ephemeral, dissipating upon their return from a blissful honeymoon in Hawaii. Alexandra's disillusionment deepened as she realized the extent of Jelka's intrusion into their lives, her control over Joe's finances serving as a stark reminder of her pervasive influence. Despite Alexandra's fervent appeals for Joe to assert his independence, his steadfast adherence to his parents' directives only served to drive a wedge between them. The ostensible gesture of generosity, a monetary gift for a down payment on a home, was marred by the conditionality of Jelka's stipulation, coercing the young couple into acquiescing to her dictates regarding their choice of residence. In the crucible of familial expectations and conflicting desires, Alexandra found herself at a crossroads, grappling with the realization that the idyllic union she had envisioned might remain forever elusive in the shadow of her overbearing mother-in-law's influence. In the labyrinthine corridors of domestic discord, the saga of Alexandra and Joe unfolded, their matrimonial bliss overshadowed by the looming specter of familial interference. Jelka's overzealous involvement in the young couple's affairs cast a pall over their home, her relentless intrusion breaching boundaries with impunity. Undeterred by Alexandra's objections, Jelka imposed her will upon their household, dictating everything from groceries to interior decor with a heavy-handedness that grated upon the nerves of the newlyweds. Joe's reluctance to confront his mother only exacerbated the tension, his allegiance torn between the two women in his life. Amidst the tempest of familial strife, Joe eventually rallied to Alexandra's side, confronting Jelka in a bid to establish boundaries. Yet his newfound resolve was short-lived, giving way to resentment as he found himself caught in the crossfire of familial discord. As the first year of their marriage unfolded, Alexandra and Joe found themselves navigating treacherous waters, their love tested by the tumult of familial strife. Though a fragile détente was reached, resentment simmered beneath the surface, poised to erupt at the slightest provocation. The arrival of their son, Brandon, heralded a new chapter in their lives, yet Jelka's overbearing presence loomed large, her well-intentioned gestures veering perilously close to overstepping boundaries. Despite Alexandra's attempts to mitigate her interference, Jelka's actions culminated in a harrowing incident that left Brandon in peril. Alexandra's fury knew no bounds as she confronted Jelka's reckless actions, her trust shattered by the betrayal of her son's safety. Joe's neutrality in the face of his mother's transgression proved the final straw, prompting Alexandra to make a fateful decision to protect her son from further harm. With a heavy heart, Alexandra departed from the home she had shared with Joe, seeking solace in the embrace of her own family. As the specter of divorce loomed large, accusations flew and battle lines were drawn, plunging the once happy family into a bitter struggle for custody and financial assets. Amidst the wreckage of their shattered dreams, Alexandra grappled with the painful realization that the idyllic union she had envisioned was but a fleeting illusion, shattered by the irreconcilable differences that tore her family asunder. In the aftermath of the acrimonious divorce proceedings, Alexandra found herself locked in a bitter struggle with her ex-husband Joe and his formidable mother Jelka. Despite Jelka's staunch support, their legal battle ended in Alexandra's favor, granting her full custody of Brandon, financial support, and ownership of the house. As the dust settled on their fractured marriage, Jelka nursed a deep-seated resentment, viewing Alexandra's victory as the ultimate betrayal of her son. For Alexandra, however, the divorce marked a newfound sense of liberation. Free from the shackles of constant tension and familial drama, she reclaimed her autonomy, returning to the familiar rhythms of her premarital life. Though not without its challenges, Alexandra found solace in the company of her loved ones and the unwavering support of her friends. Yet, amidst the semblance of normalcy, a sinister undercurrent began to surface. An anonymous package arrived in the mail, containing a book titled The Death of Cindy James. Intrigued, Alexandra delved into its pages, only to discover eerie parallels between Cindy's tragic fate and her own experiences. Haunted by the chilling accounts of harassment and threats, Alexandra's unease deepened as she realized the ominous implications of the book's contents. Her fears escalated when she became the target of inexplicable incidents mirroring those detailed in Cindy's story. From mysterious fires to ominous phone calls, Alexandra found herself trapped in a nightmarish spiral of paranoia and dread. Convinced of Jelka's involvement, Alexandra sought refuge in the arms of the law, only to be met with frustration at the lack of tangible evidence. Determined to uncover the truth, Alexandra enlisted the services of a private detective, hoping to unravel the tangled web of deceit surrounding her ex-husband's family. As the investigation unfolded, Alexandra braced herself for the chilling revelation that the sinister forces at play were far more insidious than she could have ever imagined. In the aftermath of the tragic events that befell Alexandra, the investigation took a sharp turn into the realm of deliberate malice. On the fateful evening of August 5, 1992, as Alexandra and her colleague departed from work, a routine trip to their car turned into a scene of horror. Shots rang out, shattering the tranquility of the parking lot as chaos erupted. Alexandra lay motionless, the victim of a calculated ambush that left her lifeless body sprawled across the asphalt. Eyewitness accounts painted a grim picture of the assailants, two dark-haired men fleeing in a stolen red car, leaving behind a trail of devastation. As the investigation unfolded, suspicions turned towards the Pesic family, their motives shrouded in a veil of secrecy. Though Joe and his family provided alibis, their demeanor raised suspicions, casting doubt upon their innocence. The involvement of a familiar face, Milan Nindik, cast a sinister shadow over the unfolding tragedy. With ties to the Pesic family and a history of criminal activity, Milan emerged as a prime suspect in Alexandra's demise. Surveillance efforts bore fruit when Milan's inexplicable rendezvous with Jelka led to his apprehension, triggering a cascade of revelations. The discovery of incriminating evidence, cash, a mysterious name, and a missing firearm further implicated Milan and Jelka in the orchestration of the attack. Yet despite mounting evidence, the elusive truth remained just out of reach, as forensic analysis failed to yield definitive answers. As the investigation delved deeper into the abyss of deceit, the web of lies began to unravel, exposing the dark underbelly of betrayal and manipulation. With justice hanging in the balance, the relentless pursuit of truth became a race against time, where every clue held the potential to unlock the secrets of Alexandra's untimely demise. In the labyrinth of deception and betrayal, the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, revealing the orchestrators behind Alexandra's tragic demise. As detectives unraveled the tangled threads of the conspiracy, the elusive shooter remained the last missing link in the chain of culpability. A cryptic note led investigators to David Sigiviana, a shadowy figure whose DNA and fingerprints tied him to the scene of the crime. With the assistance of David's girlfriend-turned-informant, a damning confession was captured, providing the crucial evidence needed to unravel the truth. Further revelations emerged from the shadows of the past, as eyewitnesses recounted chilling encounters with Jelka, painting a damning portrait of her involvement in Alexandra's persecution. Fueled by vengeance and resentment, Jelka conspired to recreate the tragic fate of Cindy James, enlisting David as the triggerman and Lawrence as the driver in her twisted scheme. As the truth came to light, justice was swift and uncompromising. David, Lawrence, Milan, and Jelka stood trial for their heinous crimes, each receiving the full weight of the law's retribution. Yet, amidst the wreckage of shattered lives, Joe and his father remained untouched by the taint of guilt, their innocence a bittersweet solace amidst the storm of condemnation. With the perpetrators behind bars, the responsibility of raising Brandon fell upon Alexandra's grieving mother, a solemn testament to the irrevocable loss inflicted by the hands of those consumed by malice. As the curtain fell on this tragic saga, the echoes of Alexandra's memory lingered, a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring quest for justice in a world fraught with darkness.
On a rainy May day in 2018, 14-year-old Anna Kriegel from Ireland suddenly found herself involved in mysterious and horrific events. What could have happened to this cheerful girl? The answer to this question was to be found by a brave detective. The story of Anna began back in 2004, when she was born in the Russian city of Novokuznetsk. Soon the infant had to be sent to an orphanage. Her birth mother could not take proper care of her. Years spent in an orphanage alone without proper love and affection put an imprint on the emotional development of the girl. However, in 2006, Anna's fate changed abruptly. The couple Patrick and Geraldine Kriegel, who lived in Ireland, adopted 2-year-old Anastasia. The couple had dreamed of having a child, but had long been unable to have one because of the complexities and strict requirements of adoption. They fell in love with the girl from the first meeting and even decided to leave her Russian name, affectionately calling her Anna. Anna's life in a new family was happy at first. Her parents spoiled her, took her to the skating rink, skiing, arranged family trips. Every year they went to France, to the homeland of Anna's father, where the girl made many friends and practiced her French. However, there were also difficulties in Anna's life. Because of her hearing and vision problems resulting from surgery to remove a tumor, it was not easy for her to study. In high school, the girl also experienced difficulties in communication due to her sensitive nature and sometimes impulsive behavior. And so in May 2018, the irreparable happened. Anna was involved in terrible events. What could have happened to this beloved and well-adjusted girl? The answer to this question was to find a brave detective investigating in a quiet Irish suburb. What secrets were its inhabitants hiding? The detective had to unravel this tangle of mysteries at any cost. To help Anna overcome her difficulties, her parents supported her hobbies, such as swimming and dancing, where she found joy and even performed at local events. Despite her fears about high school and the difficulties of finding acceptance among her peers, Anna still strived to make new friends but faced the harsh reality of teenage bullying. Classmates somehow learned that Anna was adopted and began teasing her, calling Geraldine and Patrick fake parents. Unable to find friends at school, Anna felt rejected and spent more and more time on the internet, creating social media profiles and her own YouTube channel. The online world opened up new opportunities for her, but there were people hiding behind fake accounts whose goal was to destroy other people's lives. Impressive Anna took all negative comments to heart, which further undermined her self-esteem. The girl grew much faster than her peers and strongly stood out against their background. By the age of 13, her height reached almost 5 feet 10 inches. Because of this, she was often insulted, and inappropriate comments of an intimate nature appeared online. But Anna was just a 13-year-old teenager, naive and insecure. Anna told her mother about the bullying. Geraldine, far from virtual life, tried to protect her daughter, but appealing to the school did nothing. The rumors only worsened the situation. One day, returning home in her favorite headphones, Anna was suddenly caught up with 4 guys who insulted and even touched her. The girl ran home in horror and told everything to her parents. Geraldine and Patrick filed a police report, but the offender was only given a warning. Parents began to personally take Anna to school, but this only spurred new ridicule. The girl even came with a black eye. She wanted to show how it hurts inside. Anna started fake accounts and began to leave insults under her posts, trying in this way to get closer to her peers. Watching her daughter suffer was unbearable for Geraldine. Realizing that the situation is out of control, the parents turned for help to specialized organizations, but there Anna's problems were considered too serious. The girl still left school alone, eyes downcast and wearing headphones. What finally happened to Anna Kriegel on the fateful day of May 2018? The answer to this question was to be found by a brave detective, unraveling the tangle of cruelty and misunderstanding that enveloped the life of this unfortunate girl. Anna's situation seriously worried Geraldine. She deeply sympathized with her daughter and, hiding her desperate tears, dreamed only of her happiness. Finally, the personal therapy that had begun had some positive results. Anna had several close friends with whom she spent time sharing her worries and talking about boys. The first year of middle school was coming to an end. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, May 13, 2018, Geraldine planned to help Anna with her exam preparation. They usually studied together on weekends, despite her mother's busy schedule. But this time they decided to just relax. They watched a movie, ate popcorn, and participated in a family celebration. Everything seemed to be fine, but no one could even imagine that this would be the last such joyful meeting. The next morning, May 14th, it was business as usual. Geraldine left for work in Dublin, and Anna went to school. After class, she tried to contact her mother, but she was busy with an important meeting. And Father Patrick, enjoying his retirement, heard the doorbell ring in the garden. There stood a young man with whom Anna quickly spoke, grabbed her favorite black sweatshirt and left despite her father's reminders about homework. Patrick watched as they headed toward St. Catherine's Park. When Geraldine returned home around 5:10 p.m. and did not find Anna there, she began to panic. Patrick revealed that her daughter had left with a strange guy. The mother immediately started calling and texting Anna, but she didn't respond. The couple went to the park, but the girl was nowhere to be found. They called friends and searched the surrounding streets, but to no avail. The parents were in despair. They could not understand where Anna disappeared and who was with her last time. The disappearance of their daughter left Geraldine and Patrick in deep shock. What could have happened to Anna on that ill-fated day? This tragedy needed urgent investigation to shed light on the terrible events that had played out in the quiet Irish suburb. After Geraldine and Patrick Kriegel desperately reported 14-year-old Anna missing to the police, the investigation immediately launched a massive operation. Law enforcers quickly got on the trail of Bray, the young man with whom Anna was last seen in St. Catherine's Park. Bray said they took a walk in the park and parted ways at around 5:40 p.m. However, CCTV cameras recorded that after that, just minutes later, when Anna did not respond to a text message from her mother, she mysteriously disappeared. The investigation tried to reconstruct a picture of what happened. An eyewitness claimed to have seen the teens merrily heading toward Blake Avenue. But at 5:49 p.m., the video captured only Bray walking back to the park. Under questioning pressure, he confessed that his other friend, Arun, was also with him. Arun confirmed that Anna had called them for a walk because she was attracted to him. But he himself had no feelings for the girl and refused to keep them company. According to him, when the upset Anna left, he was attacked by two unknown men with whom he had to fight. This information aroused serious suspicions among the police. Could the attackers have been involved in Anna's disappearance? Detectives thoroughly questioned both teenagers and then conducted with them an examination of the scene in the park. The search for the girl gained momentum. Specialists joined the investigation. Divers examined nearby bodies of water, and rescuers combed the neighborhood. All relatives and many volunteers joined this large-scale operation. The black and white photo of Anna in a sweatshirt became a symbol of this high-profile case, which attracted the attention of the whole Ireland. What really happened to the girl on that fateful day? An ongoing investigation was to provide the answer to that question. A massive search for missing 14-year-old Anna Kriegel led police to the abandoned Glenwood Manor near St. Catherine's Park. This dilapidated two-story building, once a stately country estate, has long been a gathering place for local youth. On May 15, 2018, detectives who had been carefully combing the neighborhood finally reached Glenwood. Once inside the first room, which was littered with trash and debris, they discovered a gruesome scene. On the floor lay the naked body of a young girl. Items of clothing and a broken cell phone were scattered around, and the walls of the room were drenched in blood. To the horror of the guards, the deceased turned out to be Anastasia Kriegel. Insulating tape was tightly wrapped around her neck, and 3 fingers of her hand were positioned as if she had tried to pull it off in a desperate struggle for life. The medical examiner's office determined that Anna had suffered more than 50 injuries all over her body, and the cause of her death was severe head trauma and strangulation. Bloody objects, a brick and a heavy stick with nails sticking out, were found around the girl's body. It seems that Anna tried to defend herself but was unsuccessful. The trace examination also revealed traces of sexual assault. The news of this terrible discovery instantly spread throughout the neighborhood, shocking the locals. How could such a terrible crime happen in a once peaceful and safe suburb of Dublin? Who could have committed such a brutal murder of an innocent child? Anna's grieving parents, Geraldine and Patrick Kriegel, asked only for immunity and peace for their young son, Aaron. On May 18th, Anna was buried. Hundreds of people came to her funeral dressed in red and white armbands, the colors beloved by the girl. The coffin was decorated with a Russian flag, a matryoshka doll, and a figurine of the Eiffel Tower, symbols of her Russian origin and love for France, her father's homeland. The tragic death of Anna Kriegel shocked the whole of Ireland. Now law enforcement officials had to conduct a thorough investigation to find out who could have committed this horrible murder of an innocent girl and why. The investigation into the murder of 14-year-old Anna Kriegel at the abandoned Glenwood Manor has progressed rapidly. Police arrested 2 teenagers, Bray and Arun, who were the last people to see Anna alive. A search of Arun's house yielded stunning results. They found a zombie mask with Anna's blood, black gloves, knee pads, and shin guards in his backpack. DNA testing confirmed that the seminal fluid on the girl's body belonged to Arun. In addition, traces of Anna's blood were found on his clothes and shoes. The suspect, Aaron, categorically denied his involvement in the murder despite the clear evidence. His companion, Bray, admitted he witnessed Arun dragging Anna into the abandoned Glenwood house and brutally beating her. But he said he simply walked away without taking any action. The investigation concluded that Aaron lured Anna to Glenwood, where he attacked and brutalized her. Bray, on the other hand, though not involved in the murder, covered up the crime, making him an accomplice. Despite the severity of the proven crimes, the teens were released on bail pending trial. This caused outrage in the community. Many were outraged that Anne's killers could spend the summer quietly with their families. But the Irish legal system insisted that such measures were necessary to rehabilitate juvenile offenders. The trial lasted from April 30th to June 17, 2019. Anne's parents, Geraldine and Patrick Kriegel, attended it, overcome by the pain of the experience. The court ruled that Arun will receive a life sentence with the possibility of a review after 12 years, while Bray was sentenced to 15 years in prison with the possibility of release after 8 years. The tragic fate of Anna Kriegel has caused a huge outcry around the world. Attempts to protect the identity of teenage killers from publicity caused a wave of criticism. Many felt that in this way the criminals were being shielded from responsibility. For Geraldine and Patrick Kriegel, the loss was irreparable. Patrick never got over the grief and died 2 years later. Life without their little Anna no longer made sense to them. The tragic story of Anna Kriegel leads to several important conclusions. The consequences of bullying and social isolation of adolescents can be catastrophic. Anna's difficulties in communicating with her peers and others' rejection of her appearance and behavior eventually led to a terrible outcome. Close attention to the mental health and emotional well-being of adolescents is needed. Anna's problems with expressing her feelings, her sensitivity, and impulsiveness should have signaled to her parents and teachers the need for timely help. The justice system that seeks to protect the identities of juvenile offenders has provoked contradictory reactions. Society demands inevitability of punishment for serious crimes, even if committed by children. The tragedy of Anna Kriegel showed that even seemingly good families can hide behind their success and appearance of well-being serious problems that can cause irreparable consequences. This story reminds us of the fragility of human life and the need for vigilant attention to each child. Early prevention and prophylaxis of such tragedies should become a priority for society. Anna Kriegel's death was a huge loss for her parents. This pain, which cannot be healed, should serve as a warning and encourage the whole society to care for their children tirelessly.